All right, move on to the Bucks. Brendon, they're out. I understand. I'm just gonna say this very bluntly. I think there's only way to do this. I understand
Okay.
Dame got hurt. I understand Giannis didn't play in the series. You did all of this. You traded for Dame. You fired your changed head coaches midseason. You brought in Doc. You brought back Brook Lopez. You got Giannis to sign this extension. You did all of this, all of that. Got Pat Bev, who's an absolute clown for the way he acted in multiple ways after that last game. You did all of that to end up losing to the Indiana Pacers round one. Again, context aside, you can play devil's advocate about their future if you want to, but there's just no way around it. To do all that they did, to not lose in the first round again after last year, to then lose in the first round again this year, is an utter disappointment. It's an utter failure of a season for the Bucks. It has to be.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's a complete failure. I think the way I've been thinking about this, trying to kind of prep my thoughts here, and Michael Pino over at The Ringer wrote a pretty good little piece. Look ahead, and there's a couple of trades in there that I think are worth bouncing around on, but
been thinking about the Brook Lopez Herb Jones one a lot. A lot.
Brook to New Orleans is just such an obvious fit, but it's like, how do you do that? But look, I think sometimes the way a roster is constructed, the point in time on the age curve of its best players when it peaks, and the situation within the league at that time, sometimes that window only gets you one title. And I just think that might have been what happened with Milwaukee here. Because when I look back at, it's easy to say, you did this and you paid this guy and you fired that coach and why'd you do the Dame trade? And revisionist history is what we all do in these moments. But the only real move, and we've talked about this, I think almost every time we've looked at Milwaukee's fate and future and status in the league, Chris, almost every time I come back to, they probably should have traded Chris Middleton either before he got hurt, when he was starting to, get into his 30s, or right after that 7-game second-round loss in 2022 to Boston when Middleton got hurt, rather than giving him that next contract. But that's just not how this shit works. You're not going to do that.
Here's the
second best player on a title team, and you're gonna bounce him because he hurts his knee, and then be like, go to a press conference and say, we'd like to win more titles. It's like, it's not how it works, and sometimes your time runs out.
But I would say this. I agree with what you're saying, but just as a counterpoint, because you didn't do that, it kind of forced you to maybe have to trade Drew Holiday a year later. And I rather would have kept Drew Holiday long term than I would have Chris Middleton based on their ages. Like I understand what Middleton does as a ball handler, and it kind of carries a Drew Holiday at times. Carries is strong, but was really vital to what you did. I would have rather just kept Drew Holiday and trusted him to age well, and maybe as you round out your roster, turn Middleton into two guys that are on a little lower money or whatever it is. Sure. Holiday can kind of turn into what he is in Boston. Maybe he takes more than 5 shots in a game and is more than just a glorified Uber 3-and-D guy at times.
Yeah, but he's older too. Is it possible the real answer is exactly? I think the real answer might have been get rid of both of them, right? Yeah. If you're just being as cutthroat as you possibly can be. Drew Holiday is 33 years old right now. He was 33 when they traded him, because he's about to turn 34, and Middleton is 32 going on 33. So they're both a little older than Giannis and probably breaking down and past their peaks. You even just look though at what the Blazers got for Holiday after they sent him out after the Dame trade. Brogdon, Time Lord, and 2 first-round picks. What is that doing for the Bucks, right? So I still think you do the Dame trade, and the fact that you did not trade Holiday ended up helping you get Dame. So that part of it, I don't even look at that as the big mistake. I just think these guys were old. They kept making more and more moves to build around Giannis. They had the difficulties in the playoffs early that prevented them from getting rings at that point in Giannis's earlier days when Brook Lopez and Holiday wasn't on the team yet, and Middleton were younger. And sometimes you just end up with one. I'm not saying Giannis will only win one more ring for the rest of his career. I have no way of knowing that, but just like the retrospective of whether they botched this or nightmare season and all those types of things, I'm sure it doesn't make Bucks fans feel good if they think about it this way, but I'm not sure what else they really could have done. And maybe winning one was like actually a pretty damn big achievement given all that we've seen since. But looking forward, they still don't have a lot, but I do think there's moves out there.
I just have a list for you that to reflect before we look ahead. Okay. So Brendon, I don't know if he's one of your guys. I'm like a colonel in the Ryan Gosling army, particularly for like the sad boy bullshit. He's got a movie called The Fall Guy out this weekend. A better using of that movie to peg a list would have been like guys who are like stunt actors as NBA players. John Morant, like who obviously just didn't matter this season and is in the playoffs, would have been like the number one guy on that list. But this Fall Guy list is the 5 guys based on these playoff runs that are going to get blamed for what went wrong with their teams. So I have a list. I'm going to go 5 to 1. Okay. Number 5, JB Bickerstaff would have been 1 had the Cavs just looked like they were going to lose in round 1. But looks like they're going to advance. I still think that guy is probably getting fired if they have a pretty embarrassing showing in round 2. I think it feels like time for a change. It feels like change is coming to Cleveland.
They also haven't won in the first round yet.
I know they gotta do that. We'll
take care of business before we talk about round 2 here.
Gotta tell you, all due respect to the Cavs and the Magic, no one really needs Cavs Magic Game 7 either. I'm just saying. I don't think any of us need to like spend
78-76 Mitchell game winner.
Yeah, at 1 p.m. on Sunday. I think we're all good. All right, number 4, Tobias Harris.
Yes.
Just like someone in Philly needs
2 shot attempts.
Yeah. After like I sent you, hit some very nice closeout game stats, and then he does that. Number 3, couldn't pick up Bucks one exactly. My names were Doc Rivers or Brook Lopez. I'm going Brook Lopez because that I don't think they're gonna. It doesn't seem like they're gonna fire Doc. Doc, if he had just mangled everything, that maybe would have been the way to go. But they owe him a lot of money. Brook Lopez feels like the way to like get younger and trade some money around. So I'm gonna say Brook Lopez is the fall guy here. Number 2, Darvin Ham, who I'm surprised hasn't been like publicly executed by the Lakers yet. Honestly,
it sounds like it's supposed to happen today, Friday. The firing.
Okay. Little news dump. Good job, Lakers. Number 1, your backyard. Who within 3 hours of them losing to the Wolves, the knives and the this is actually what was going on stories coming out already. Frank Vogel, number 1.
I think there's a decent chance that Frank Vogel stays in place, so I might not have put him 1, but in terms of the public leakage and embarrassment that he has had to deal with. Yes. He is the very archetypal fall guy in that way, even if he keeps his job, frankly.
He got like absolutely like knifed in the back for being like not related to superstars like within 3 hours of that game ending. Like that story was done. That was one of those stories that had been percolating for a while. So that's
they hit publish at the buzzer.
Anyone I missed?
Anybody you missed? Let me look at the NBA standings here. I don't think Brook Lopez is fair, right? That one doesn't feel fully right to me. I mean, is Adrian Griffin, right? Like,
yeah, my thought with Brook is like they're gonna change. I think all of these are in the idea of like these teams are gonna change something or exchange someone out. Who is that person that thus is like the fall guy? I think Brook is like the one there.
Sure, in that capacity, yeah. I think Adrian Griffin was already the first offering there, and frankly, if we're being like super honest about what the biggest letdown was in Milwaukee, I think it's probably Dame.
It's probably that and just
Dame not being Dame, I think, is the single biggest reason this team didn't hit its ceiling outside of the injuries in the playoffs by that point, and the lack of depth.
Yeah, no Dame Giannis connectivity to the degree I think we would have expected.
Okay, can I throw the trades at you? Speaking of Brook Lopez,
yeah, hit me, please.
So these are for Michael Pina at the Ringer, and it's just a good to get the creative juices flowing here on what this type of offseason might look like for the Bucks. They have their 2031 pick now available to them because we are in the summer of 2024. So they don't have any more picks not super true anymore. He suggested Portis Connaughton and that pick for Marcus Smart, DeAndre Hunter, somebody in that like B minus wing range to kind of upgrade their perimeter defense a little bit, just be another wing that they just really didn't have outside of Middleton this year because Crowder and Beasley and those guys weren't really cutting it. Or he suggested Lopez and Andre Jackson Jr. for Herb Jones and Larry Nance Jr. I think the Pelicans said no to that one.
Yeah.
I think the Hawks could say yes to the DeAndre Hunter thing. Just to get a pick 100%. For him.
Yeah, I'm not a DeAndre Hunter is a good person. I think he's kind of mid, but save some money, I guess, for the Bucks. Congratulations. If you're there with the Bucks, it's just kind of tough. Like the apron stuff, I think is going to make those trades kind of important. I also think, Brendon, I'm going to note this too before I forget. I think the Bucks are maybe also a lesson to maybe, and the Wolves are maybe the opposite example of this. It's maybe not great to have your team aligned on the same exact timeline for cost purposes. You need to like spread out like your contracts. Like you need to try to have someone who's good and kind of cheap, someone who's good and like a little more settled. You can overpay for a little bit while you have someone like kind of like the NFL quarterback model. It's almost like good if you have things like spread out a little bit instead of everyone like making the most amount of money at all times.
Yeah, I think back to Milwaukee's original sin, so to speak, with their team building. I mean, I think the big thing that can get overlooked with a lot of these teams by the time they've already gone all in and we're talking about their superstar being in his 30s and what can they do and all that, you got to draft well. And the Bucks have drafted awfully. They really never got a difference maker in the draft throughout this entire Giannis stretch. And that comes back to bite you. You don't have that young depth piece. You don't have the guy on a cost-controlled contract. I mean, they had Grayson Allen. They end up trading him now too. So it's a tough spot to be in. But yeah, I think Lopez will have bidders. I mean, the Rockets were ready to pay Tillman Fertitta's second mortgage for him, and I think his play type, especially if you can bring him in and not ask him to do as much as Milwaukee has needed him to do, will have value. Maybe you get a more traditional, just sort of rim rolling center in there, or you split that cost up and that type of thing. But they're not going to be able to get a ton better. It's just going to need to be, can Giannis improve on the defensive end from what he was this year? Can Dame look a little more like himself? Can Middleton stay healthy? I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at here, I think. But I have a list for you with our next team. If you want me to toss it your way.
Just wanna throw one other thing about I want to read some role guys in the Bucks in terms of minutes played this year. Just like this is, I think, speaks to just the weird place they're in. Malik Beasley played nearly 30 minutes a game for this team. It's a little too much for Malik Beasley. 4th most minutes per game. Bobby Portis 24.5. Jay Crowder 23. Pat Connaughton, who just has not been good since the finals win, 22.1. Beauchamp played 12.7.
Why did you bring that up? That was like fully unnecessary to talk about the 2021 finals. I'm sorry. Just like really, we don't need to go 3 years in the past for a Pat Connaughton analysis. Thank you very much. Yeah, the dude shot like 50% from three in that series out of nowhere. I have not forgotten. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't mean to cause you some trauma on a Friday. It's, I'm sure, hopefully nice weather in Phoenix. My point is this: to your point, have to draft well.
Yep.
The one guy they drafted didn't matter to them this year, and now they're the second oldest roster. Yeah, second oldest roster in the league, and Pat Bev was like a big deal get for them. Like that is a bizarre play. That is NBA roster hell in 2024 to be in that.
Is
spot.
Pat Bev in the league next year?
Yeah, I think he's going to be on the Bucks.
Okay, well, thank God he's tight with Doc.
That feels like the kind of thing where it's like, I understand he threw a ball at fans and like is being weird with media for no reason, but we like the toughness, and like that just feels like a guy who's gonna have a job on a team like that next year.